I'm usually not the biggest fan of shortboards because they come with a bunch of sacrifices, but the Meepo Edge, it seems to have bucked this trend. It's got the range and speed of a much larger board, but the convenience of a shortboard, meaning you can carry it around no problem. It's about the size of a regular skateboard. It's just a whole lot heavier. But to save you time, I'm gonna give you my conclusion up front. I really like the Meepo Edge. It's fast, it's got great range, it's got great acceleration, and because it's so small and has a kicktail, it's really fun to play around on. That being said, it's not perfect, and because it's a shortboard, it's less stable at higher speeds, it's more prone to speed wobbles, it rides a bit rougher because there's no flex deck, and because of the smaller wheels, you're going to feel more of the bumps and cracks in the road. And as far as downsides go, that's about it. It's a really awesome little board, and I did not expect to love this thing nearly as much as I do. It's quickly become my go-to daily board, and I think that's because it's just so easy to pick up and grab. I didn't think portability would make that big of a difference to me. I own another shortboard, but it's so much less fun to ride than any of my longboards that I rarely actually ride it. But the Edge is just as fun as my longboards, if not more. If you appreciate me putting the summary at the start of the video so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to, drop a like and a sub. It really helps me out. All right, now let's get into it. Oh, and real quick, Meepo did send this board over for review, but it is not sponsored and they have no control over what I say in the video. All right, I want to start things off with a few things that the board absolutely nails, and we got to start with power. I've ridden quite a few other shortboards at this point, and so far, all of them have felt kind of underpowered, especially when coming from something like the Meepo Voyager or the Backfire Zealot, but the Edge doesn't. It's obviously not as powerful as those other longboards, but it still feels powerful. Like for example, if you're in mode 4, which is the fastest mode, and if you do a launch and you're not paying attention to your foot position, it's really easy to accidentally do a wheelie. That's partially from it being a kicktail and from the board being short, but even still, it's happened to me quite a few times where I go to take off and my back foot is slightly on the kicktail and it just wheelies, and that is so much fun. It makes the board feel playful and jumpy, and I absolutely love it. And on that, Meepo claims a top speed of 26 miles per hour, and I'm a heavier rider at about 190 pounds, so I rarely actually hit the top speed on boards generally, but I actually got this thing up to 26 miles per hour. It takes a long stretch, so realistically the top speed for me is probably more like 25, but still, on a shortboard like this, I'm telling you, 25 miles an hour feels more like 35 on a full-size longboard. I think if it could go faster, I probably wouldn't want to do it, at least not without way tightening down the bushings, and then it wouldn't be very fun at low speeds. So I actually think the top speed of 26 is basically perfect for what this board is. And the most impressive part to me is that you get that power and acceleration, and you still get great range. Meepo claims 20 miles, and again, because I'm a heavier rider and I pretty much always ride in the fastest speed mode, I never get anywhere close to the claimed range of any boards. And on the Edge, I get about 12 to 15 miles on a single charge, which again, for a short board, incredibly impressive. I will say though, because it doesn't have any deck flex, has a shorter wheelbase, and has smaller wheels, I don't really like riding more than like, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 miles straight without taking a break. It definitely does tire me out a bit more than riding on a longboard, but you still can do a longer ride even on this shortboard, which is really cool. And if you do want to do a longer ride, even though it's belt drive, the rolling resistance is really low, so I don't think kicking is going to be a problem if you do run out of battery. I actually had to kick for a couple miles just the other day, and it's definitely more resistance than if you were to have in-hub motors, but it's not very much resistance and you can still kick no problem. And when it comes to size, they got it just right. It's small enough that I can carry it around by the trucks, no problem, but it's big enough that they can still fit a solid battery and motor. Like I said earlier, it's about the size of a regular skateboard for reference, but it weighs about 20 pounds, which is a few pounds lighter than my Voyager, but the weight isn't that much different than longboards. And even still, even though the weight's about the same, because it's so compact, it is quite a bit easier to carry around than a regular electric longboard. I'm 6'5", so your mileage is gonna vary here, but when I pick up most of my longboards by the trucks, they still just barely touch the ground. So I can either awkwardly shrug my shoulder or I can carry them in the middle of the board, which means I'm gonna get my clothes dirty. But on this board, I can carry it by the trucks, no problem. And it might sound like a little thing, but man, it makes such a big difference because at least with my setup, I have to carry the board in and out of the house every time I want to go for a ride. And sometimes I stash it under the table or something when I'm meeting friends for drinks or dinner or whatever. And so having it be easy to carry is actually a bigger deal than I was expecting it to be. It's got pretty small wheels at just 80 millimeters. For reference, most electric longboards come with about, 100 millimeter wheels. And my favorite wheels right now are 110 millimeter cloud wheels. The issue with smaller wheels is that you feel more of the bumps. And where I live, which is in the Pacific Northwest, we have chip-sealed roads, and they are bumpy as hell. And after a few minutes of riding on them, my feet go numb. That being said, the benefit of smaller wheels is that you get more road feel, which basically means you can just tell what the board is doing under your feet easier. And at least for me, it feels like I have a bit better control and a little bit better reaction time with smaller wheels. If I wanted to simplify it, I could say it as simple as this. With smaller wheels, you feel everything, which is both good and bad, so, take your pick. I think the 80s pair great with this board, and I wouldn't want bigger wheels on it, but if I was trying to go full speed more of the time, I probably would put at least some 90s on there. That being said, wheels are really a personal preference, so skate with whatever works for you. And when it comes to turning and carving, the truth is that shortboards just aren't as fun to carve on as longboards in my personal opinion. You just don't get the same flow and bounce from turn to turn, especially with a stiff deck. But the Edge is actually my favorite carving experience that I've had on a shortboard, and that says something. One reason is because it's a relatively wide board, which means my feet can fit pretty well from side to side, which isn't the case on other shortboards that I've tried. And another reason is that it makes great use of the space that it has. The trucks go right up to the front, giving you the most usable space possible. And because it has a kicktail, you can pop up the front of the board and take some quick turns. And that's something that I can't do on any of my longboards. And I love doing it. It's really nice. As far as the remote goes, it's worked perfectly and I don't have any issues with it. It's a little bit annoying because it's a bit different to navigate the menus than any other board that I've used. It's not a problem, it's just something that takes a little getting used to. But one thing I do love about this remote is it allows you to change the braking intensity, which is really useful. I did end up having this weird issue where sometimes the board would just decide to slowly spin the motors despite me not touching the remote at all. And when I was on the board, I never noticed that. But when I would hop off the board, I would notice it would slowly creep away. And I could press the brakes and that would stop it, so it's not a big deal, but it is something that I wanted to mention. Now, I don't know what caused this issue. It's probably a problem with the ESC, but I do want to talk about a bigger potential issue, which is Meepo's reliability and customer service as a company. I'm going to be making a whole video on this later on, so subscribe if that's something you want to see. But here's the thing. Meepo sent me this board for review, but like I said, they have no control over what I say. That's part of our agreement. So about 50 miles in, I was riding the Edge and it just decided to stop turning on and nothing I could do could get it to turn on. And when I reached out to Meepo after some troubleshooting, they decided it was a problem with the ESC and they decided to send me a new one. I was still within the warranty window, so it was free, but my concern is about reliability. This is a sample size of 1, so it's hard to draw any conclusions off of my experience. But I'll just say that having the board break so quickly on me makes me a little bit nervous. It could just be a random fluke, but I still wanted to let you know that my board did break within the first 50 miles, and while Meepo sent me a replacement part for free, which is exactly what should happen in this situation, so good job Meepo customer service, you did great, the board did still break, and so do with that information what you will. And even though they did send me a replacement part for free, I do still have to take the board apart myself and replace it myself. Now, I tinker with electric skateboards all the time, so it's not that big of an issue for me, but I could see for some other people, having to do the replacement yourself, that could be a real problem. Anyway, overall, I'd say this is the first shortboard that I could ride as my only board and still have tons of fun. It's less fun to carve on than most longboards, but it's fast, it has a great range, it's playful with the kicktail, and it is incredibly easy to carry around. So if you look at this thing like a whole package, I think Meepo knocked it out of the park. It's currently on sale for $570, and at that price, I think it is a fantastic value. That being said, if you have questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.